I would say the respect for Pittsburgh, how hard they play, how competitive they are, how they played. Regardless of who was in or out of the lineup, they just play a very hard and fast game. That if you don't match that, then they make you look real bad. So that would really be it. I think we don't want to live in the past in terms of our own team here. I think we've come a long way since then, and as it turns out, that's part of our journey to get here, and we had to go through something like that. But we feel like we're in a better place here now, and now with a lot of their best people back in the lineup, it's an opportunity for us to show that.
So Ian Scott and Peter Mrazek working out. Can you speak to their progress?
Yeah, I think today was Peter's first day back on the ice, so he's making progress, but it's going to take some time before he's back ready. Ian Scott's been skating for quite some time now. I think his return to the Marlies, I think, is imminent, I would say, from what I'm hearing. I'm not completely up to speed on him, but just what I'm gathering around the facility and that, it seems like he's close to joining them for practices.
Is the plan for Wall to start tomorrow?
Yeah, that is the plan right now, yes.
What do you know about him now? That any different knowing about knowledge with him, Sheldon, now that he's played in one game, or is that just too small a sample size to appreciate?
Yeah, I think you never want to judge too much either way off of one game, but obviously that experience we think would help him going forward. I think the one thing is that we did is we went back and we looked at his game specifically, and the goals. The goals that went in were one thing, and there's a couple there that we really hung him out to dry. But look at some of the saves that he made in that game, and he looked really confident in the right spots. Looked big in the net, not giving up a lot. So that helped our confidence in him, and just the fact that he's got the experience here now, even more so with another week of practicing and prepping. Obviously it's important for us to give Jack some time off, so that we'll give Joe another go at it tomorrow, but clearly the focus will remain on today here first.
So Jean, with the concussion with the Marlies, are you a little worried about the goaltending depth currently available?
I wouldn't say so. I think we had. I mean, even when we called up Joe, we were making a decision there between, Hutchinson, who's got lots of experience in the NHL, and Källgren, who had played extremely well for them and won a championship last season, and then Joe. So we had that depth to be able to withstand something like that. So I think that the depth remains strong.
When you mentioned getting Jackson time off, I'm just wondering how the conversation has evolved. Like, even over your time here, just about getting managing the work output away from games for your starting goalie. Is that a pretty collaborative conversation?
Yeah, it has been. Between myself and our medical team and Steve Breer, goaltending coach, and Jack himself. Not necessarily all of us in the same room, but we're all looped into the same discussions. And Jack's been really good with it. He's managed it really well. At times if he feels he needs or wants some practice reps, he speaks up and communicates that, and we get him involved. But we also, we either design practices in a way that that he doesn't have to take on certain reps, or we'll put most of the load down in one end and ease up in another. If sometimes I'll. If there's something specific that he would like to get out of it, or that Steve would like to get out of the practice, I'll move that sort of closer into the beginning of practice so he can just get off. So those kind of things, we're managing to help with that. We've had to do it even more so with not having Peter being available. But I think it's served us well in terms of knowing what we can do and how we can manage that, and that it's gone really well for Super here so far.
Liljegren tonight?
Yes.
When you have conversations about players getting scratched, what's that conversation like? And just sort of in general, not necessarily Travis tonight, but...
Yeah, it's not an easy one. I mean, everybody wants to play. It's one of the most difficult things to do as a coach, is to make those lineup decisions and have to move people out of lineup, especially those that have done a good job for us and have been a part of winning lineups. It's players naturally feel when they're in a lineup that wins that they've done a good job and they've helped the team win. They're part of it, which they certainly are. So those decisions become harder and those conversations become a little more difficult. But we have communicated it, specific to Lilligren and Dermott, especially Hall when he was out, and then even Sandy when I talked to him when he sat in Buffalo, that we believe we've got 7 guys that can and should play. And each of the guys that are sort of been moving in and out here, they've been in the situation where they've sat for long periods of time and wanting to get in. So there's a little bit of an understanding there that there's something to that we don't want to let guys sit for too long. We want to keep guys involved, and that sometimes their play in a particular game or a particular string of games may not necessarily be the factor of the decisions we make. Sometimes they've played really well, but we've just, whether it's managing their minutes and their workflow, as we've talked about with some of our younger defensemen, Lilligren and Sandin, we're going to make decisions, to use the depth. So that in itself becomes a little more challenging for the guys, because it's not, sometimes as a player you could say to yourself, I didn't play very well last night and I might be coming out next game. But that's not necessarily the case. In fact, we've had some games where guys didn't have strong games and we kept them in, just because we wanted to give them another shot or keep them moving or whatever the case may be. So we're not always making those decisions based on performance. It's bigger picture things, keeping everybody involved. And that's been communicated to them, that they just have to have that level of understanding.
Make it easier a little bit that you got a back-to-back coming up, and you may have that defensive rotation going tomorrow?
Yeah, potentially. We've talked about it. We're going to see how the game goes today. You never know what you're going to pull out of a game in terms of injuries, and sometimes there's injuries that prevent a guy from playing. Sometimes there's injuries that they can play through, but maybe don't necessarily need to, just because we have healthy guys available. So we'll see how tonight goes. We're going to keep our focus solely on tonight.
When it comes to practice, I know you don't have an ideal lineup situation. You use your extra forward as the 8th defenseman. In that case, is there any advantage to that player to practice defense in terms of his overall game?
I do think there are advantages inside of it that you just pick up some perspective about playing defense, what it feels like to be a defender back there, some of the positioning pieces, especially when it's a center. In Semyonov's case, you end up playing low down in your own end a lot. You end up having to be the guy that gets the first touch on breakouts, and you're passing the puck up to your wingers. So those kind of things are pretty similar in that sense. But that's not why you do it. You do it just because you want to keep your practice flowing, and it's a chance to keep another player involved who otherwise would be sitting on the sidelines, and a defenseman would have to rotate in there, and they would be getting extra work, which is not what we want. So it's really about balancing it out. But I do think if you go about it with the right mindset, that there are some positives available to that. And I think that's for all players of all ages. If you can mix in playing different positions, for myself growing up, I remember, I really played forward, center, right wing. That was really my thing. That was it. But, if I go back and do it again, I would have played all sorts of positions. So I think that's an important piece. And even at this level, I think there's some positives inside of it.
Sheldon, if you think back to when you first got this job, has your emphasis or prioritization of defense increased? Or do you think it's just the players buying into playing a more defensive game?
Well, I think there's been I would just say it's both. I think I've grown, and the emphasis has grown or changed as the team is changing and evolving and finding its way. I mean, when I first got hired here, it was a team that was really struggling offensively, as in a big way, and a lot of guys underachieving and trying to get that kind of up and running. But that you have to have a foundation defensively, to give yourself a chance. And that's why we still, from the day I was hired till now, we still talk about how we want to play offensively and our skill and all those things. But it has to be on a foundation of competitiveness and structure and consistency, physicality. Like those are the things I spoke about on day one that I was hired, and there's still things I'm talking about day one of camp today or in this season and every day while we're rolling here now.
In what ways do you feel like you're a better coach now versus the day you took over?
I mean, I don't know. It's not for me to judge whether or not it's better, but experience serves well. And, there's experience in the league is one thing, but just experience with the players and with the team. And you just have a history here now with guys. You've built a foundation both in your relationship and in how you've coached them and things you've discussed. So you can add layers to that, or you can just reinforce things that they know. You don't have to spend as much time on it. You can just kind of bring it to top of mind. So those are the kind of things that I think just have really helped me. But over time, our staff has evolved as well, and we've made changes and additions there, and I've been part of that process, which I didn't do that when I was hired mid-season, and things are going 100 miles an hour. So those are the kind of things I think that those experiences I feel like given me the greater depth to my position.
Has mostly coaching in a pandemic challenged you in certain ways?
Yeah, of course it has. I think it's starting to even out a little bit here in terms of me. These are somewhat normal times, or we're getting back to that. But obviously, I'm talking to a group of people in masks and stuff here still, and it's a reminder that we are still very much in a pandemic here, and. Yeah, there's been challenges for sure. I mean, coaching with a mask on creates big challenges, both, from a communication standpoint with players, officials, and now that this season when you add the fans in, it's even louder in the buildings than what it was last season, so it's even more challenging to communicate. Those little things like that, but then obviously just how you interact off the ice is much different than what you're accustomed to. So there's a lot of changes. However, at the same time, everybody in the league is changing to that, and there's a lot of coaches out there that have got a lot of experience in the league, and their experience in the pandemic is right there with mine. So we've been growing through this together.
New buildings?
I think. I know tomorrow we're going to get into one that is new for all of us, but. I think it was Carolina not long ago, and I think Vegas, I think, might be the only one remaining that I haven't been to.
Seattle, but yeah.
Seattle, of course, yes. I think that might be it, yeah.
Despite the challenges, what have you enjoyed the most, would you say, about the job?
I would say it's a privilege to coach the Leafs. I mean, that's actually it, coming here every day and working every day and knowing how passionate people are and how much people care about what you're doing. I've had that at various levels, and it's relative, of course. This is on a whole other planet, but it's been great. I enjoy it every day. I enjoy the challenge of it. Enjoy working every day to figure out how we can make our team better and how we can compete at the highest level when it matters the most. But it's just these regular seasons, the pace of the schedule is just tough. It comes fast, all those things, but that's all part of the journey that you come to love and appreciate.